A millionaire finds twin girls identical to his childhood crush, then learns their mother is in the hospital with only 3 months to live. Just before we start, drop a flag emoji that represents your country. Enjoy the history. The Seattle rain fell in sheets as Maxwell Donovan stepped out of his Tesla, the droplets dancing on his custom Italian leather shoes. At 46, he had everything money could buy: the penthouse overlooking Puget Sound, the tech empire valued at billions, the private jet waiting at his command. Everything except what truly mattered. "Sir, your meeting with the board is in 30 minutes. His assistant's voice chirped through his earpiece. "I'll be there," Maxwell replied, dismissing the reminder with a tap. He needed coffee, the good kind, not the pretentious swill served in boardrooms. As he turned the corner toward his favorite local cafe, he saw them. 2 little girls, perhaps 8 years old, huddled beneath the awning of a closed bookstore. Identical twins with copper-colored hair falling in tangled waves around pale faces. They weren't just any children. They were mirror images of her. Maxwell froze mid-step. The world around him suddenly muted. Those eyes, that particular shade of amber green he'd spent 30 years trying to forget. "Spare change, mister." The girl on the left spoke, her small hand extended. Her voice carried the same musical quality that had once been the soundtrack to his happiest memories. "For our mum's medicine," added her sister, clutching a worn teddy bear missing one eye. Maxwell felt his heart hammering against his ribs. "Where is your mother?" he asked, his voice barely audible above the drumming rain. "Hospital," said the first twin. "She's real sick." "Cancer," whispered the second, the word sounding alien from such young lips. Time seemed to stand still as Maxwell stared at these children, carbon copies of Elizabeth Winters, his first love, the girl who'd promised to wait for him when he left for college, the girl whose letters suddenly stopped coming, the girl whose parents told him she'd moved away without leaving a forwarding address. "What's your mother's name?" Maxwell asked, already knowing the answer. "Elizabeth," they replied in unison. Maxwell's legs nearly gave out beneath him. After all these years, could it really be her? "My name is Maxwell," he said, kneeling to their level despite the rain soaking through his $3,000 suit. "I want to help your mom. Can you take me to her?" "D." The girls exchanged a look, that silent communication unique to twins, before the one with the teddy bear nodded. "I'm Lucy. This is Lily. Mum's at Seattle Grace." "We're not supposed to go with strangers," Lily added cautiously. Maxwell smiled gently. "You're absolutely right. How about this? I'll call a taxi for all of us. And you can use my phone to call anyone at the hospital who knows you." Another twin glance, then hesitant nods. 20 minutes later, Maxwell stood outside room 412, his world tilting on its axis. Through the small window in the door, he could see her, thinner, paler, her once vibrant copper hair now dull and short against the stark white pillow. But unmistakably Elizabeth. A doctor emerged from the room, clipboard in hand. "Excuse me," Maxwell said, his voice strange to his own ears. "I'm an old friend of Elizabeth Winters. How is she doing?" The doctor's expression shifted subtly. That look medical professionals get when delivering bad news. "Are you family?" "No, but I'm sorry. I can only discuss her condition with family members." Lucy tugged at Maxwell's sleeve. "The doctor told Mom she has 3 months," she whispered, eyes wide and frightened. "Is that a long time?" Maxwell felt the floor drop away beneath him as he looked down at these 2 little girls, orphans in the making, with Elizabeth's eyes. "Wait," he called as the doctor turned to leave. "I want to help. Whatever she needs, specialists, treatments, anything. Money is no object." The doctor paused, assessing Maxwell with new interest. "Perhaps we should talk in my office, Mr. Donovan." Maxwell Donovan. Behind him, Elizabeth's monitor beeped steadily, counting down the precious moments of her remaining life, and Maxwell knew, with absolute certainty, that he was exactly where fate had always intended him to be. "Mr. Donovan, Elizabeth has stage 4 pancreatic cancer that's metastasized to her liver," Dr. Reeves explained, his office walls lined with degrees that suddenly seemed useless to Maxwell. "We've exhausted standard treatments. She declined rapidly over the past month." Maxwell leaned forward. "What about experimental treatments? Clinical trials?" "She's been rejected from 3 trials already. Her condition is too advanced." "I'll make donations, big ones. I'll fund an entire research wing." Dr. Reeves shook his head. "Mr. Donovan, I understand your desire to help, but money can't change the fundamental biology here. Elizabeth has weeks, maybe 3 months. Maxwell stared out the window at the rain-slicked Seattle skyline. "How are her daughters coping? As well as can be expected." "Child Protective Services is involved. They have no other family." The words hit Maxwell like physical blows. No family, just like Elizabeth had been when they met as scholarship kids at Westlake Prep 30 years ago. "Can I see her?" Minutes later, Maxwell stood beside Elizabeth's bed, barely breathing. The monitors beeped softly, marking time that was running out. "Lizzie," he whispered, using the nickname only he had called her. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened. Recognition dawned slowly in those familiar amber-green eyes. "Max?" Her voice was a ghost of what it had been. "Am I dreaming?" "No, I'm really here." His voice cracked as he took her thin hand. "The girls brought you," she said, understanding immediately. "They found you somehow. They were downtown. I saw them and—" Maxwell swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell me, Lizzie? All those years ago." A tear slid down her hollow cheek. "I wrote you dozens of letters. When you never answered, I thought you'd moved on. Your parents said you wanted a clean break." Maxwell felt the blood drain from his face. "My parents told me you'd moved away, that you left no address." Elizabeth closed her eyes. "They never wanted us together. The poor scholarship girl and their son. I never knew about the twins. I found out after I thought you abandoned me." Her fingers tightened weakly around his. "Max, I'm so scared for my girls. When I'm gone—" "I'll take care of them," Maxwell said without hesitation, the words escaping before he could analyze them. "I promise." Elizabeth's eyes widened. "You can't just—" "I can, and I will." The certainty in his voice surprised even him. "I never stopped loving you, Lizzie. Never." As Maxwell stepped out of the room an hour later, his mind reeling with decades of lost time and lies, his phone buzzed. The caller ID showed his mother's name, Margaret Donovan, Boston socialite, board member of his company, and apparently the architect of his greatest heartbreak. The twins sat in the waiting area, watching him with Elizabeth's eyes, their futures now inexplicably tied to his. Maxwell's finger hovered over the answer button, 30 years of questions burning in his throat. "Maxwell, darling, the board is in an uproar. Where are you?" His mother's cultured voice flowed through the phone, as cool and controlled as ever. Maxwell watched the twins sharing a vending machine snack. "I'm at Seattle Grace Hospital." "Hospital? Are you ill?" "No. I'm with Elizabeth Winters and her daughters." The silence that followed told him everything. "I don't know who—" "Don't!" Maxwell's voice cut like steel. "Don't lie to me again." "You intercepted her letters. You told me she moved away. You've been lying for 30 years. Another pause. "You were 18, Maxwell. You had Yale ahead of you, not a teenage pregnancy and a girl from nowhere. She was pregnant with my children, and you kept that from me." "Children? There's more than one?" "Twin girls. They're 8 years old." "That's impossible." His mother's voice hardened. "Elizabeth's child would be almost 30 now." Maxwell's world tilted sideways. What? If she was pregnant when you left for Yale, that child would be 28 now. Maxwell stared at Lucy and Lily, unmistakably 8 years old and unmistakably Elizabeth's. The implications made his head spin. "I need to go," he said, ending the call over his mother's protests. A nurse approached. "Mr. Donovan, Elizabeth is asking for you." Back in room 412, Elizabeth looked even frailer than before. "The girls said you're going to help us," she whispered. Maxwell sat beside her. "Lizzie, I just spoke with my mother. She admitted intercepting your letters all those years ago." Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "I knew it. I knew you wouldn't have just forgotten me." "She said something else," Maxwell continued carefully. "She said if you were pregnant when I left, that child would be nearly 30 now." Elizabeth's gaze slid away. "I never said the girls were yours, Max." The words felt like ice water in his veins. "Then whose?" "They're my granddaughters," Elizabeth whispered. "My daughter Charlotte had them when she was 21. She and her husband died in a car accident last year." Maxwell struggled to process this. "Your daughter, our daughter?" Elizabeth nodded slowly. "Charlotte was yours. She had your eyes, your smile. She was brilliant like you." "And I never knew her," Maxwell said, grief for a child he'd never met washing over him. "Where are her things? Photos?" "Storage unit. Couldn't afford to keep the apartment after the funeral and medical bills." Elizabeth's breath hitched. "The girls are all I have left of her." Maxwell took her hand, feeling decades of missed moments and stolen time. "They're all we have left of her," he corrected gently. As he left the room, his phone lit up with texts from his executive team demanding his return. The board meeting, the quarterly projections, the merger negotiations. It all seemed trivially unimportant now. In the hallway, Lucy approached, her sister half hiding behind her. "Are you really our mommy's daddy?" she asked, her small voice steady. Maxwell knelt down, looking into the eyes that were so like his own. "I think I am, which means I'm your grandfather." "We never had a grandfather before," Lily whispered. "Well, you have one now," Maxwell promised, "and I'm not going anywhere." Behind them, a man in an expensive suit stepped off the elevator, scanning the hallway with predatory precision. "Mr. Donovan," the hospital administrator called out, "there's someone here from Child Protective Services who needs to speak with you immediately." The CPS agent, Nelson Parker, had the weary efficiency of someone who'd seen too much and helped too little. "Mr. Donovan, I understand you're claiming to be these children's biological grandfather," he said, flipping through his folder in the small consultation room. "I am. Their mother was my daughter." "A daughter you never met or supported?" Maxwell bristled. "I didn't know she existed until today. Their grandmother and I were separated by circumstances beyond our control." Parker's expression remained neutral. "We'll need DNA testing to establish relationship. Even then, you have no legal standing yet. The girls are currently wards of the state. Their grandmother is still alive. And terminal. We're preparing for when she's not." Maxwell leaned forward. "I want to file for emergency custody. Today." "Mr. Donovan, with all due respect, you're a complete stranger to these children. You have no parenting experience, and your lifestyle—" "My lifestyle? Billionaire tech CEO? Constant travel? 60-hour work weeks? Not exactly conducive to raising traumatized 8-year-olds. Maxwell felt his temper rising. "I can change my circumstances. They can't change theirs without help." Parker sighed. "DNA testing first, then home study, background checks, parenting classes, psychological evaluations. It takes months, Mr. Donovan, even in expedited cases." "Elizabeth doesn't have months. That's precisely why we're involved." As they talked, Maxwell's phone buzzed constantly. The board was threatening to hold an emergency meeting without him. "I need to make a call," Maxwell said, stepping into the hallway. He dialed his COO, Rachel Wells. "Max, Where the hell are you? The board is in revolt. The merger is imploding. Rachel, I need you to handle everything for a few weeks. Weeks? Are you having a midlife crisis? I just found out I had a daughter. She died last year. Her twin girls are now in the system because their grandmother, my first love, is dying of cancer. The silence stretched. Holy shit, Max. Exactly. Everything else can wait. When he returned to the consultation room, Parker was packing up his files. Your DNA test is scheduled for tomorrow, the agent said. In the meantime, the girls will remain in their current foster placement. Foster placement? They're not staying with Elizabeth? Ms. Winters has been hospitalized for weeks, Mr. Donovan. The girls have been in emergency foster care. Maxwell felt sick. Can I see where they're staying? That's not standard procedure. I'll make a $100,000 donation to CPS right now. Parker frowned. Mr. Donovan, that would be inappropriate. Fine. Can I at least spend time with them today, here at the hospital? Supervised visitation can be arranged. After Parker left, Maxwell returned to Elizabeth's room. She was sleeping. Her breathing shallow. A nurse updating her chart looked up. She's been asking for her letterbox. Says it's important you see what's inside. Letterbox? Small wooden box she keeps in her hospital bag. Says it contains 30 years of letters. Maxwell's heart constricted. Letters to whom? The nurse gave him a knowing look. To you. I believe letters she wrote but could never send. The wooden box sat on Maxwell's lap, worn smooth by decades of handling. Inside were dozens of letters, each dated and addressed to him, spanning 30 years. With trembling hands, he opened the earliest, dated just weeks after he'd left for Yale. Dear Max, I've written you 3 times with no response. Your mother says you're too busy for hometown distractions. Maybe she's right. But there's something you need to know. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby, Max. I'm scared, but also happy because it's part of you. Maxwell read letter after letter, watching Elizabeth's hope turn to despair. Then determination, as she raised their daughter alone. There were Charlotte's first steps, first words, school achievements. Elizabeth had documented everything he'd missed, addressing each milestone to him as if someday he might read them. In the hospital room, Elizabeth stirred. You found them. Why did you keep writing? Maxwell asked, his voice rough with emotion. For 30 years, when you thought I'd abandoned you? Elizabeth's smile was sad. At first, I wrote because I thought you might come back. Then I wrote because it helped me feel less alone. Eventually, I wrote because Charlotte deserved to know her father, even if only through my words. Did she read these? When she was 18, she wanted to find you, but I convinced her to wait until she finished college. Elizabeth's voice broke. She never got the chance. Maxwell moved his chair closer. Tell me about her. Everything. For the next hour, Elizabeth shared their daughter's life, how Charlotte had inherited Maxwell's gift for mathematics and entrepreneurial spirit, how she'd started a small tech company with her husband James, how they died coming home from an investor meeting during a rainstorm. She would have found you eventually, Elizabeth said. She was so much like you, determined, brilliant, unstoppable, once she set her mind to something. And the twins, they're so young to have lost so much. They're resilient. Lucy is the practical one, always planning and organizing. Lily is the dreamer, sensitive and artistic. They balance each other. A coughing fit seized Elizabeth. Bringing a nurse running. Maxwell was ushered out while they stabilized her. In the waiting area, his phone rang. His attorney. Max, what's this about you trying to get emergency custody of children you just met? They're my granddaughters, John. Jesus, the board is already questioning your judgment. If you pursue this, they'll use it against you. Let them try. They're talking about invoking the mental health clause in your contract. Forced medical leave. You need to come in and calm things down. Maxwell watched as Lucy and Lily were led down the hall by a social worker for their hospital visit with Elizabeth. "The board can wait," Maxwell said. Ending the call, as the elevator doors opened, he saw a familiar face, his mother, Margaret Donovan, impeccably dressed and radiating cold fury. "Maxwell, this has gone far enough," she announced, striding toward him. "I've spoken with the board. They agree your behavior is concerning." "You destroyed my family," he replied quietly. "You kept me from my child, my grandchildren. And now you're here to what? Do more damage?" Margaret's perfectly composed face faltered for a moment. "I protected you. That girl would have ruined your future." "No, Mother. You ruined it when you decided to play God with my life." Lucy and Lily emerged from Elizabeth's room, stopping short when they saw the confrontation. Margaret stared at the twins, seeing the unmistakable Donovan features mixed with Elizabeth's. "My God," she whispered, "they look just like you did at that age." The DNA results confirmed what Maxwell already knew in his heart. The twins were indeed Charlotte's children, which made them his biological granddaughters. "A 99.97% match," Dr. Reeves said, handing Maxwell the report. "Congratulations, Grandpa." The word hit Maxwell like a physical force. Grandfather at 46, a grandfather who had never been a father. "How's Elizabeth today?" he asked, pushing away the strange disconnect. Dr. Reeves's expression sobered. "Not good. The cancer is accelerating faster than we anticipated. She's developing liver failure." "How long?" "Weeks, not months." "I'm sorry." Maxwell had spent the past 5 days practically living at the hospital, leaving only to shower and change at his Seattle penthouse. His corporate empire was in chaos. The board had indeed invoked the mental health clause, putting him on forced leave with his mother as acting CEO. He couldn't bring himself to care. In Elizabeth's room, the twins sat on either side of their grandmother's bed, reading aloud from a worn copy of The Secret Garden. Elizabeth's eyes were closed, but she smiled at certain passages. "Mr. Donovan?" A nurse beckoned from the doorway. "There's someone here to see Ms. Winters. Says he's an old friend." In the waiting area stood a tall man with silver-streaked dark hair and the weathered look of someone who worked outdoors. "Robert Turner," the man introduced himself, extending a calloused hand. "I understand you're Max." Maxwell tensed. "Yes. How do you know Elizabeth?" "We've been neighbors for 15 years. I've been helping with the girls when Lizzie's at her treatments." Robert's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're the one who disappeared, right?" "It's complicated. Usually is." Robert seemed to be measuring him. "You planning to stick around this time?" "Yes." "Good. Those girls need someone." Robert handed Maxwell a set of keys. "Elizabeth's storage unit. She asked me to give you these, said there are things you should see." Later that afternoon, with Elizabeth resting and the twins in art therapy, Maxwell drove to the storage facility. Unit 424 was small, containing the remnants of 2 shattered lives, Elizabeth's and Charlotte's. He found boxes labeled Charlotte's School, containing perfect report cards, science fair ribbons, and math competition trophies. A photo album showed a beautiful young woman with his eyes and Elizabeth's smile, growing from infant to adult in a series of snapshots. His daughter, a stranger he would never know. In a box marked Charlotte and James Business, he found business plans for a startup called Neurasoft, developing AI algorithms for medical diagnostics. The technology was brilliant, ahead of its time. Maxwell sat on the concrete floor, surrounded by the ghosts of what might have been, when his phone rang. It was Dr. Reeves. "Mr. Donovan, you need to come back. Elizabeth's taken a turn." At the hospital, the atmosphere in room 412 had changed. More machines, more staff, urgent whispers. "Acute liver failure," Dr. Reeves explained quietly. "Her system is shutting down." The twins were huddled in the corner with a hospital social worker, their small faces pale with fear. "Where will they go tonight?" Maxwell asked the social worker. "Back to emergency foster care." "No," Maxwell's voice was firm. "They're coming home with me." "Mr. Donovan, without court approval, then get it. Call Judge Williams in family court. Tell her Maxwell Donovan is calling in that favor from last year's charity auction." 30 minutes later, with strings pulled and bureaucracy temporarily sidestepped, Maxwell had emergency overnight guardianship of the twins. Elizabeth rallied briefly that evening, her eyes finding Maxwell's in the dimly lit room. "Max," she whispered, "the girls." "They're right here," he said, guiding Lucy and Lily to the bedside, "and they're coming home with me tonight." Relief flooded Elizabeth's face. "Charlotte's work, in storage. I found it. Her company, her research." "Finish it," Elizabeth whispered. "It was going to change everything, save lives." "I will," Maxwell promised, holding her frail hand. "For Charlotte, for the girls." Elizabeth's eyes drifted to the twins. "My beautiful girls, remember that I'll always love you, always watch over you." "Don't go, Grandma," Lily pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Elizabeth summoned her strength for one last smile. "I have to, sweetheart, but I'm leaving you with someone who'll love you as much as I do." Her gaze returned to Maxwell, communicating decades of what might have been, before she whispered something that chilled his blood. "Beware of Margaret. She'll try to take them too." The penthouse overlooking Puget Sound felt cavernous that first night. Maxwell had never considered how unwelcoming his designer-curated space might seem to children. The twins stood in the vast living room, still wearing the clothes they'd had on for days, their small backpacks clutched like lifelines. "Are we really staying here?" Lucy asked, her practical nature immediately assessing their surroundings. "Yes," Maxwell replied, suddenly seeing his home through their eyes, the sharp-edged furniture, breakable art pieces, and complete absence of anything child-friendly. "For tonight at least. Tomorrow we can talk about what happens next." Lily moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, pressing her small hand against the glass. "We're so high up, like birds." Her voice held wonder, not fear. "Are you hungry?" Maxwell asked, realizing he had no idea what 8-year-olds ate. His refrigerator contained expensive wine, gourmet coffee, and little else. "We should save food for later," Lucy said quietly, "in case there isn't any tomorrow." The statement hit Maxwell like a physical blow. These children had already learned to prepare for scarcity, to expect the worst. Elizabeth's medical bills had clearly devastated their finances. "In this house," Maxwell said gently, kneeling to their level, "there will always be food. Always. You never need to worry about that again." He ordered pizza, watching in amazement as the girls devoured slice after slice. Later, he gave them his guest room with its king-sized bed, where they curled together like puppies despite having so much space. "Mr. Maxwell," Lily called as he turned to leave, "is Grandma going to die tomorrow?" The directness of the question caught him off guard. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "The doctors are doing everything they can." "She told us she's going to heaven soon," Lucy added, her small face solemn. "She said she'd be with Mom and Dad there." Maxwell sat on the edge of the bed. "What do you remember about your parents?" The girls exchanged one of their twin looks. "Mom was smart," Lucy said. "She built computers and worked really hard." "Dad told the best stories," Lily continued. "He made different voices for all the characters." "They argued sometimes," Lucy admitted, "about money and the company. But they loved us very much," Lily finished. Clutching her one-eyed teddy bear tighter, Maxwell felt a surge of grief for the daughter he'd never known, who'd inherited his drive and ambition. "I wish I had known them," he said softly. "Grandma has pictures," Lucy offered, "and videos on her phone." That night, after the girls finally fell asleep, Maxwell sat in his home office surrounded by files he'd taken from the storage unit. Charlotte's business plan for Neurosoft was innovative, an AI system that could predict medical crises before traditional symptoms appeared. It could have revolutionized preventative care, saved countless lives, including perhaps Elizabeth's. His phone rang. Rachel, his COO. "Max, the board has scheduled an emergency vote tomorrow. Your mother is pushing to have you permanently removed." "On what grounds?" "Mental instability, dereliction of duty, irrational behavior." "Shall I go on?" Maxwell laughed humorlessly. "My mother destroyed my life 30 years ago. Now she wants to destroy my company too. What do you want me to do?" Maxwell looked toward the guest room where his granddaughters slept. "Buy me time. I need to focus on Elizabeth and the girls right now." "The merger won't wait, Max. Billions are at stake." "Some things are more important than billions, Rachel." After hanging up, Maxwell returned to Charlotte's research. The deeper he dug, the more impressed he became. His daughter had been brilliant, perhaps more so than himself. Her algorithms were elegant, her approach revolutionary. But her company had been chronically underfunded, unable to complete clinical trials or secure FDA approval. The irony wasn't lost on him. While he'd been building his tech empire, his unknown daughter had been struggling to launch her own, lacking the very connections and capital he could have provided. At 3 a.m., his phone lit up with a text from Dr. Reeves. "Elizabeth asking for you. Come if you can." Maxwell checked on the twins, still deeply asleep, then called his building's concierge to sit outside his door. The night nurse in Elizabeth's room looked up as he entered. "She's been in and out of consciousness," she explained, "asking for you when she's lucid." Elizabeth's eyes fluttered open as he took her hand. "Max," she whispered, "the girls, safe, sleeping." They ate 3 pizzas between them. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "They're growing." "Charlotte's research is remarkable," Maxwell said. "I'm going to make sure it gets completed, gets to market." Elizabeth squeezed his hand weakly. "Our daughter was special, so smart, but no one would fund her, being a woman in tech, being young, having no connections. I could have helped her." "Yes," Elizabeth agreed, her voice fading. "She would have changed the world." "She still will," Maxwell promised, "through her work, through her daughters." Elizabeth's gaze sharpened suddenly. "Margaret came here after you left, offering money." Maxwell felt his blood run cold. "Money for what?" For me to persuade the girls to go with her instead of you." Elizabeth's breathing grew labored. "She said they'd be better off with a grandmother than a grandfather, that she could give them a proper upbringing." "What did you tell her?" "To go to hell," Elizabeth whispered, a flash of her old fire returning. "But Max, she won't stop. She took Charlotte from us. Don't let her take Lucy and Lily too." Dawn was breaking over Seattle when Maxwell returned to the penthouse. To his surprise, he found Lucy and Lily already awake, sitting quietly in the kitchen. "You came back," Lucy said, relief evident in her voice. "Of course I did," Maxwell replied, realizing they'd been afraid he would abandon them. "I just went to check on your grandmother." "Is she?" Lily couldn't finish the question. "She's still with us," Maxwell assured them, though he knew it wouldn't be for long. "Are you hungry?" Another shared twin look. "We didn't know if we were allowed," Lucy explained, glancing at the refrigerator. "Everything in this house is yours now too," Maxwell said, opening cabinet doors to reveal shelves embarrassingly bare of child-appropriate food. "Let's go shopping after we visit Grandma." As he helped them dress in their worn clothes, the only ones they had, Maxwell made mental notes: clothing, shoes, books, toys, proper beds, everything children needed. His phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Board meeting 10 a.m., the vote to remove him. "Change of plans," he told the girls. "We need to make a quick stop before the hospital." An hour later, the elevator doors opened onto the executive floor of Donovan Technologies. The twins held Maxwell's hands, their eyes wide at the gleaming glass and steel environment. Conversations stopped as they walked past. Employees stared openly at the eccentric billionaire CEO leading two identical little girls in worn clothing through their workspace. His executive assistant gaped. "Mr. Donovan, the board is already assembled, and good, that saves time." Maxwell guided the twins toward the boardroom. "Could you watch Lucy and Lily for a few minutes? Get them some juice or something." Inside the boardroom, 12 board members sat around the massive table, his mother at the head, already in his chair. "Maxwell," Margaret acknowledged coolly, "this is a closed meeting. A meeting about me. Without me? I don't think so." Maxwell remained standing. "I understand you're voting on my removal today." Board member Theodore Wilson cleared his throat. "Max, we're concerned about your recent behavior. Abandoning your responsibilities, erratic decisions. I took emergency family leave after discovering I had a daughter who died." "Leaving twin granddaughters behind," Maxwell interrupted. "Their grandmother, my first love, is dying of cancer. Would anyone here have done differently?" Uncomfortable glances were exchanged around the table. "Emotional decisions have no place in business," Margaret stated flatly. "You've put a $30 billion merger at risk over a personal matter." "A personal matter you created," Maxwell replied, his voice dangerously quiet. "When you intercepted Elizabeth's letters 30 years ago, when you lied to me about her leaving, when you kept me from knowing I had a child." The boardroom fell silent. Several members looked at Margaret with new expressions, shock, disapproval. "That's absurd," Margaret attempted, but her voice lacked conviction. "I have the letters, Mother, all of them. Elizabeth kept writing to me for years, documenting our daughter's life. Letters you made sure I never received." Board member Sophia Chen leaned forward. "Margaret, is this true?" Before she could answer, the boardroom door opened. Maxwell's assistant stood there with the twins. "I'm sorry, Mr. Donovan, but the little one needed the bathroom, and they didn't want to be separated, and now they're asking for their grandfather." The word hung in the air. Grandfather. Every head turned to stare at the girls, their copper hair, their amber-green eyes so like Elizabeth's, but with unmistakable Donovan features. "Everyone," Maxwell said into the silence, "these are my granddaughters, Lucy and Lily. Girls, wave hello to the board of directors of our company." Lily waved shyly, while Lucy assessed the room with intelligent eyes. "You have beautiful tables," Lily offered politely. Margaret stood abruptly. "This emotional manipulation is beneath you, Maxwell. Is it manipulation to introduce my family? The family you kept from me?" Maxwell turned to the board. "I founded this company. I built it from nothing. I've delivered record profits for 15 consecutive years. Now I'm taking 2 weeks to handle a family emergency, an emergency created by my mother's deception, and she's attempting a hostile takeover." "That's not what this is," Margaret protested. "Isn't it?" Maxwell pulled out his phone. "By the way, I've been recording our conversation, which is legal in Washington state. I wonder how shareholders would react to learning the acting CEO hid the existence of her grandchild from the founder for 30 years, that she tried to bribe a dying woman to influence child custody." Theodore Wilson cleared his throat again. "Perhaps we should table this vote until—" "No," Maxwell interrupted. "Vote now. Remove me if you want. But understand what you're really voting for, a power grab by someone who's already proven she'll sacrifice family for control." One by one, the board members looked away from Margaret. The mood in the room had shifted palpably. "If there's no vote," Maxwell continued, "I'll be taking family leave for 2 weeks." Rachel has my proxy on all matters except the merger, which will wait. After that, we can revisit my position if needed. He held out his hands to the twins. Come on, girls. Let's go see Grandma. As they walked out, Lucy looked up at him. Is that lady really our great-grandmother? Biologically, yes. I don't think I like her, Lily whispered. She has cold eyes. Out of the mouths of babes, Maxwell thought. Out of the mouths of babes. Elizabeth passed away 3 days later, slipping away peacefully with Maxwell and the twins at her bedside. Her last words were for the girls, a reminder to always be brave and kind, to take care of each other, to remember they were loved. In her final moments, she'd squeezed Maxwell's hand and whispered, "Find happiness this time around, Max. Don't waste another 30 years. The funeral was small, but dignified, paid for by Maxwell. Robert Turner attended, along with a handful of Elizabeth's co-workers from the diner where she'd worked nights. And several neighbors. The twins wore new black dresses, holding hands throughout the service, their grief palpable but contained, as if they'd already experienced too much loss to be overwhelmed by more. They're too young to understand death is permanent, the child psychologist had told Maxwell during their first session. But too old to be shielded from its reality. The best thing you can do is maintain stability and routine. Stability and routine. Concepts entirely foreign to Maxwell's life of international flights, midnight conference calls and spontaneous business trips. His penthouse was being gradually transformed. 2 bedrooms redecorated with child-appropriate furniture, toys and books appearing on previously minimalist shelves, a refrigerator stocked with actual food instead of take-out containers. The legal process moved forward with unusual speed, greased by Maxwell's connections and resources. DNA confirmation of his relationship to the twins, emergency temporary guardianship transitioning toward permanent custody. The twins' court-appointed advocate had initially been skeptical but warmed after seeing the genuine bond forming between Maxwell and the girls. 2 weeks after Elizabeth's funeral, Maxwell stood in what had been Charlotte's storage unit, now nearly empty. Most items had been moved to his penthouse, photo albums, mementos, the girls' baby books, but he'd saved Charlotte's research for last, unsure what to do with it. His phone rang. Rachel, who had been keeping Donovan Technologies running in his absence. Max, how's it going with the Munchkins? Maxwell watched as Lucy methodically sorted her mother's papers, while Lily examined a framed photo of Charlotte receiving her college diploma. Better than expected. They're remarkable children. And the custody situation. Moving forward, no serious obstacles so far. He lowered his voice. Has my mother made any moves? Rachel hesitated. She's been unusually quiet. The board has solidly backed you since your confrontation, but what? I don't trust her, Max. She's planning something. After hanging up, Maxwell knelt beside Lucy. Finding anything interesting? The more serious twin nodded. Mum's company papers. Look at this. She handed him a folder labeled Patient Prediction Protocol. Inside was a flowchart detailing how Charlotte's AI system would integrate with hospital electronic records to flag patients at risk for rapid deterioration, catching conditions like Elizabeth's cancer potentially years earlier when treatment would be more effective. Your mum was trying to create something that could have saved your grandma, Maxwell explained gently. Lucy's eyes, so like his own, studied him intently. Can you finish it? You make computers too, right? I'm going to try, Maxwell promised. Later that evening, after tucking the girls into their new beds in their freshly decorated rooms, Maxwell sat in his home office reviewing Charlotte's research more thoroughly. The concept was sound, the preliminary data promising, but the company had run out of funding before completing FDA trials. His decision crystallized. He would relaunch Neurosoft as a division of Donovan Technologies. With Charlotte posthumously credited as founder and lead developer, her work would save lives, her legacy preserved. A notification appeared on his screen. Motion detected at front door. The security camera showed Margaret Donovan standing in the hallway, looking imperious even through the digital feed. Maxwell sighed, steeling himself before opening the door. "Mother, it's late. We need to talk," Margaret said, sweeping past him into the penthouse. She stopped short at the sight of children's jackets hanging by the door, small shoes lined up beneath them. "So it's true. You're really playing house with them." "I'm raising my granddaughters," Maxwell corrected. "Not playing anything." Margaret surveyed the transformed living room with distaste. "This is a temporary emotional reaction, Maxwell. Once the novelty wears off, you'll realize you're not equipped for this." "Like you weren't equipped to be a mother?" The words slipped out before he could stop them. Margaret flinched slightly before recovering. "I gave you everything. The best schools, the best opportunities. Everything except the right to make my own choices." Maxwell kept his voice low to avoid waking the girls. "Why are you here?" Margaret straightened. "All business now." "To offer a solution. The girls need stability. A proper upbringing with traditional values. I've renovated the east wing of my house in Boston. They'll have the finest tutors, attend the best schools." "No." The word hung between them, simple and immovable. "Don't be stubborn. You're a single man with no parenting experience and a company to run." You're offering to take more children from me," Maxwell interrupted. "The answer is no. It will always be no." Margaret's expression hardened. "I've already filed for visitation rights as their great-grandmother. My attorneys believe I have a strong case for shared custody, given your lifestyle." "My lifestyle?" "A workaholic bachelor, living in a penthouse. Hardly an ideal environment for traumatized children. The courts consider the best interests of the child, Maxwell, not the emotional whims of a middle-aged man having a crisis." Before Maxwell could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. "We want to stay with Grandpa Max." Lily stood there in her unicorn pajamas, looking tiny but determined. Lucy appeared beside her, as always. "We don't want to go with you," Lucy added firmly. "You're the mean lady from the hospital who made Grandma cry." Margaret's face tightened. "Children should be in bed at this hour. This is exactly the lack of structure I'm concerned about." "Ooh, we heard arguing," Lily explained. "We always check on each other when there's arguing." Maxwell moved to stand beside the twins, placing a protective hand on each small shoulder. "Mother, I think you should leave now." "This isn't over," Margaret warned, heading for the door. "Not by a long shot." After she left, Maxwell knelt to face the girls. "I promise you won't have to go anywhere you don't want to. You're staying with me." Lucy studied him with those two wise eyes. "Can she really take us away?" "No," Maxwell said with more confidence than he felt. "She can't." That night he made calls to his attorneys, made calls to initiating a restraining order against Margaret and formally contesting any custody claims she might file. By morning, he had assembled the top family law team in Seattle. This was one battle he couldn't afford to lose. 6 months passed in a blur of legal filings, court appearances, and the everyday chaos of raising twin 8-year-olds. Maxwell had officially been granted permanent guardianship, though Margaret's petition for visitation rights remained in legal limbo, her expensive attorneys finding endless ways to delay final rulings. The twins had settled into their new life with surprising adaptability. They attended a progressive private school where they were catching up academically after years of spotty attendance. Lucy showed a remarkable aptitude for mathematics and computer science, Charlotte's daughter indeed, while Lily blossomed in art and creative writing classes. Maxwell had permanently relocated Donovan Technologies headquarters to Seattle, restructuring his role to allow for school pickups and bedtime stories. The merger his mother had been so concerned about had gone through, albeit with modified terms, adding billions to the company's valuation. But his greatest professional satisfaction came from Neurasoft. He'd assembled a team of top AI researchers and medical professionals to continue Charlotte's work. With the first clinical trials showing promising results, the technology could potentially revolutionize early detection for numerous diseases, including pancreatic cancer, though that breakthrough had come too late for Elizabeth. "Mr. Donovan," his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Turner is here to see you." Maxwell looked up in surprise. He hadn't seen Robert Turner since Elizabeth's funeral. "Send him in." Robert entered, still looking uncomfortable in indoor settings. "Thanks for seeing me without an appointment." "Of course. How are you, Robert?" "Managing." Robert sat heavily in the visitor's chair. "I've been going through some of Lizzie's things. Found something you should see." He placed a thumb drive on the desk. "This was hidden in a false bottom of her jewelry box. Has your name on it." Maxwell picked it up, turning it over in his hand. "Did you look at what's on it?" Robert nodded grimly. "Yeah, that's why I brought it straight to you." Later that evening, after the girls were asleep, Maxwell plugged the drive into his computer. It contained a single video file, dated a week before Elizabeth's death. Elizabeth's gaunt face filled the screen, her hospital room visible in the background. "Max," she began, her voice stronger than he remembered from those final days. "If you're watching this, I'm gone. There's something I couldn't bring myself to tell you while I was alive. Something about Charlotte." Maxwell leaned closer to the screen. "Heart-pounding. When I found out I was pregnant, your mother came to see me. She offered me $50,000 to disappear and never contact you again. When I refused, she threatened me." Elizabeth's eyes hardened with the memory. "She said, if I tried to tell you about the baby, she would make sure you lost your scholarship to Yale. That your father would cut you off financially." Maxwell felt sick. This went beyond intercepting letters. "I didn't take her money, but I did stop trying to reach you directly. I thought I was protecting your future." Elizabeth looked away from the camera. "But that's not the worst of it. After Charlotte graduated college, she found your contact information. She wrote you a letter introducing herself as your daughter." Maxwell's blood ran cold. "She mailed it, but never received a response. 6 months later, she ran into your mother at a tech conference in Boston. Margaret told her she'd delivered the letter personally, and that you—" Elizabeth's voice broke. "That you wanted nothing to do with her. That you had a real family now and didn't need complications from the past." Maxwell paused the video, struggling to breathe. His daughter had reached out to him, and his mother had intercepted that too, delivering a cruel lie that he'd rejected her. He forced himself to continue the video. "Charlotte was devastated," Elizabeth continued. "She never tried to contact you again. She threw herself into her work, determined to succeed without your help or connections. When she and James died, I found a journal where she'd written about the rejection, how it had shaped her determination to build something meaningful on her own terms." And tears streamed down Maxwell's face. His brilliant, determined daughter had lived and died, believing he'd callously rejected her. "I'm telling you this now because I see how much you care for the girls, how much you would have loved Charlotte. You deserved to know her, Max, and she deserved to know you. Margaret stole that from both of you." Elizabeth's expression hardened. "And I'm afraid she'll try to take the girls too. Don't let her, whatever it takes." The video ended, leaving Maxwell sitting in the dark, devastated by a new dimension of loss. His phone rang. Rachel again. "Max, sorry to call so late, but you need to know something. The board received a proposal today. From your mother." "What kind of proposal?" "A restructuring plan that would effectively remove you as CEO while retaining your shares. She's claiming your family situation has compromised your judgment and business focus." On what grounds? That's the thing, Max. She has documentation, emails, memos, calendar entries, suggesting you've been making erratic decisions, missing crucial meetings, endangering company interests. That's absurd. I've been fully transparent with the board about my schedule and priorities. These documents suggest otherwise. They look legitimate, Max. Several board members are concerned. After hanging up, Maxwell sat in stunned silence. His mother wasn't just trying to take the girls. She was making a play for his company too. And somehow, she had manufactured evidence to support her claims. A small sound made him look up. Lucy stood in the doorway, watching him with those perceptive eyes. "You're crying," she observed quietly. Maxwell quickly wiped his face. "Just some sad news about your mom." Lucy came to stand beside his chair. "The lady wants to take us away, doesn't she? The mean one." "She's trying," Maxwell admitted, "but I won't let her." Lucy's small hand covered his. "Mom always said that bad people eventually trip over their own lies. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed." The board meeting was set for Friday, 3 days away. Margaret had orchestrated her timing perfectly, presenting her evidence of Maxwell's incompetence just before the quarterly earnings call, creating maximum shareholder anxiety. Maxwell sat in his home office at 2 a.m., surrounded by the fabricated emails and memos Rachel had managed to obtain copies of. They were masterfully done. Communications he'd supposedly sent, scheduling conflicts he'd allegedly created, strategic decisions undermined by his distraction. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to create this fiction. Someone with inside access and technical expertise. Someone working with his mother. A small noise from the hallway made him look up. Lucy again in her practical striped pajamas. "Can't sleep?" he asked, quickly minimizing the documents on his screen. She shook her head. "I had a dream about Mom. She was trying to tell me something important, but I couldn't hear her." Maxwell opened his arms, and Lucy climbed into his lap, something she rarely did, being the more reserved of the twins. "I miss her too," Maxwell said softly. "I wish I had known her." Lucy leaned against his chest. "She was really smart. She could fix any computer. Dad used to say she could talk to machines in their own language." Maxwell smiled sadly. "She got that from both of us, I think. Your Grandma Elizabeth was incredible with patterns and systems too." Lucy yawned. "Mom kept all her important work on her special drive, the one with the fingerprint lock. Did you find it?" Maxwell froze. "Fingerprint lock?" "Uh-huh. It was blue with a silver top. She never let anyone touch it." The next morning, after dropping the girls at school, Maxwell drove to the storage facility where the last of Charlotte's possessions remained. He methodically searched through every box, every container. Nothing. Frustrated, he called Robert Turner. "A blue external hard drive with a fingerprint scanner doesn't sound familiar," Robert said. "But there's still some of Lizzie's things at her old apartment. The landlord gave me until the end of the month to clear it out." An hour later, Maxwell stood in Elizabeth's former home, a small, worn apartment that nonetheless showed signs of having once been a warm, loving space. Faded marks on the wall tracked the twins' growth. Bookshelves sagged with well-read volumes. A collection of small glass animals gathered dust on a windowsill. "Lizzie kept a secret compartment," Robert explained, pulling up a floorboard in the main bedroom closet. "For important papers, emergency cash might be worth checking." The space beneath the floorboard contained a small fireproof box. Inside, Maxwell found Elizabeth's birth certificate, Charlotte's death certificate, insurance papers, and a blue external hard drive with a silver fingerprint scanner on top. "That what you're looking for?" Robert asked. "I think it might save everything," Maxwell replied. At his office, Maxwell connected the drive to a secure, isolated computer. The fingerprint scanner glowed red, waiting. It would be calibrated to Charlotte's fingerprint. He murmured to himself, or maybe Elizabeth's. On a hunch, he pressed Lucy's school enrollment form against the scanner. It had her fingerprint recorded for security purposes. Nothing. Then he tried his own finger. The scanner remained stubbornly red. Maxwell was about to give up when he noticed a small reset pinhole on the underside of the drive. Using a paperclip, he triggered the reset, then carefully examined the device. A tiny engraving caught his eye, DNA FPS 29. He quickly searched the term online. It was a prototype biometric security system that used DNA sampling rather than traditional fingerprinting, breaking the skin microscopically to sample genetic material. The scanner wasn't reading fingerprints. It was reading DNA. With trembling hands, Maxwell pressed his thumb against the scanner. A momentary, sharp prick. Then the light turned green. The drive unlocked. Charlotte had secured her most important work with a lock only her biological parent could open. Inside the drive, Maxwell found a trove of data, Charlotte's complete research, proprietary algorithms, clinical test results, and patent applications for Neurosoft's technology. But more importantly, he found a folder labeled DT Security Breach. The files documented a sophisticated corporate espionage operation targeting Donovan Technologies, email exchanges, financial transfers, technical specifications for spyware. At the center of it all was Margaret Donovan, working with Donovan Technologies' head of cybersecurity, Alan Weiss. They had been systematically stealing company secrets and selling them to competitors for years. The operation had nearly been exposed when Charlotte, working on her medical AI system, identified unusual patterns in data security protocols while researching potential partnerships with larger tech firms. According to Charlotte's notes, she had attempted to alert Donovan Technologies directly, but had been stonewalled by the very people involved in the espionage. The final entry in Charlotte's journal was chilling. Meeting with Margaret Donovan tomorrow regarding potential security vulnerabilities at DT. Not optimistic, but it's the right thing to do. That meeting had occurred just 3 days before Charlotte and James died in their car accident. Maxwell felt the blood drain from his face. Surely his mother couldn't have. His phone rang. The twins' school. "Mr. Donovan, this is Principal Edwards. I'm calling because Lucy and Lily weren't picked up after school." Maxwell checked his watch. 3:45 p.m. "There must be some mistake. My assistant was scheduled to pick them up at 3:30. "No one came, sir, and when we tried calling your emergency contacts, we reached Margaret Donovan, who informed us she would be collecting the girls instead." Maxwell's heart stopped. "Did she take them?" "No, sir. Our records show she's not authorized for pickup. The girls are still here in my office. Keep them there. I'm coming right now." As he rushed out, Maxwell called his security team. "I need Margaret Donovan located immediately. And get me every bit of information you can find on Alan Weiss's whereabouts for the past year, especially around the time of Charlotte Anderson's fatal car accident." The school was 30 minutes away in good traffic. Maxwell made it in 15, running every red light, his mind racing with horrible possibilities. Had his mother merely tried to undermine him professionally, or had she gone much, much further? The twins were waiting in the principal's office, looking worried but unharmed. "Grandpa!" Lily cried, running to him. "The mean lady tried to take us." Maxwell knelt, gathering both girls into his arms. "You're safe now, I promise." As they drove home, surrounded by a security detail Maxwell had hastily arranged, Lucy looked up at him with those two perceptive eyes. "Something bad is happening, isn't it?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Maxwell admitted, "but I'm going to fix it. Your mom left us the key." The morning of the board meeting dawned clear and bright. At odds with the storm brewing inside Donovan Technologies' headquarters, Maxwell arrived early, flanked by his legal team and security detail. The twins were safely ensconced at Robert Turner's house, surrounded by private security that even Margaret couldn't penetrate. The boardroom filled slowly, tension thickening the air. Board members exchanged uneasy glances, aware that something momentous was about to unfold. Rachel caught Maxwell's eye from across the room, giving him a subtle nod. Everything was in place. At precisely 10 a.m., Margaret Donovan swept in, immaculate as always in a designer suit, confidence radiating from her perfectly composed features. She faltered slightly when she saw Maxwell already seated at the head of the table. Her plan had clearly involved arriving first to set the tone. "Maxwell," she acknowledged coolly, "I'm surprised you found time in your busy schedule to join us." "I wouldn't miss it, Mother," Maxwell replied, his voice steady. "Please take a seat." Theodore Wilson cleared his throat. "As chairman, I'd like to call this emergency session to order. We're here to discuss Margaret Donovan's proposal regarding leadership restructuring." "Actually," Maxwell interrupted, "before we begin, I'd like to introduce some new information that's highly relevant to today's discussion." He nodded to Rachel, who distributed sealed folders to each board member. Margaret's eyes narrowed as she received hers. "What's this?" she demanded. "Evidence," Maxwell said simply, "of a years-long corporate espionage operation targeting Donovan Technologies, an operation orchestrated by you, Mother, and Alan Weiss, our head of cybersecurity." Murmurs erupted around the table as board members opened their folders. Inside were comprehensive timelines, financial transactions, communications, and forensic data analysis, all meticulously compiled from Charlotte's research and verified by Maxwell's security team over the past 48 hours. "This is preposterous," Margaret scoffed, though a faint flush crept up her neck. "Clearly fabricated by my son, who's desperate to maintain control despite his obvious inability to balance personal and professional responsibilities." "The evidence speaks for itself," Maxwell continued calmly. "But there's more. Alan Weiss is currently being questioned by federal authorities regarding his role in this operation. He's already implicated you in exchange for leniency." Margaret's face paled. "You're bluffing." Maxwell slid his phone across the table. On the screen was a text from his head of security. "Weiss talking, full confession. You've been selling our proprietary technology to competitors for years," Maxwell continued. "My daughter Charlotte discovered your operation while researching potential partnerships for her medical AI startup." "Your daughter?" Theodore Wilson looked confused. "Charlotte Anderson, the brilliant developer behind Neurosoft, the medical AI system we're currently bringing to market," Maxwell explained. "My biological daughter, whom I never knew existed because my mother intercepted all communication from her mother, and later from Charlotte herself." The boardroom fell silent as the magnitude of Margaret's deception began to sink in. 3 days before Charlotte died in a car accident with her husband, she met with you, Mother, about the security breaches she'd discovered. Maxwell leaned forward, his voice dropping dangerously. "Investigators are re-examining the accident report as we speak." Margaret's composure finally cracked. "You can't possibly think I had anything to do with that. It was a rainy night. The roads were slick, just like the night I met the twins," Maxwell noted. "Funny how history repeats itself." The boardroom door opened, and a stern-faced woman in a dark suit entered. "Margaret Donovan, I'm Special Agent Rivera with the FBI. We'd like you to come with us for questioning regarding corporate espionage, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice." As Margaret was escorted out, still protesting her innocence, the board sat in stunned silence. "I think," Theodore said shakily, "we can table the discussion about leadership restructuring." Later that evening, Maxwell sat on the floor of his living room, surrounded by Lucy and Lily's laughter as they built an elaborate fort from blankets and cushions. The day's event seemed distant here, in this safe haven they'd created together. His phone rang. Special Agent Rivera. Mr. Donovan, I wanted to update you personally. We found evidence linking your mother to payments made to a mechanic who worked on your daughter's car the day before the accident. It's not conclusive yet, but keep digging, Maxwell said quietly, watching the twins collaborate on their architectural masterpiece. Whatever you find, I want to know. After hanging up, he crawled into the blanket fort, accepting the flashlight Lily solemnly handed him. Is the bad lady going to jail? Lucy asked directly, always the practical one. Probably, Maxwell answered honestly. She did some very wrong things. Was she the reason we never met you before? Lily wondered, leaning against his shoulder. Yes, Maxwell admitted. She kept a lot of secrets that hurt many people. Mum would have liked you, Lucy declared with certainty. She always said the most important thing was being honest and kind. 6 months later, Maxwell stood at a podium, the twins beside him in matching blue dresses as he addressed a crowd of medical professionals, investors and press. Today marks the official launch of the Charlotte Anderson Protocol, he announced, a revolutionary AI system that can detect pancreatic cancer and other aggressive diseases up to 4 years before conventional symptoms appear. The audience applauded as Maxwell continued, his voice steady despite the emotion tightening his throat. My daughter Charlotte never knew me. Circumstances and people kept us apart, but her brilliance, her determination, her vision will now save countless lives. This is her legacy. He looked down at the twins, who beamed up at him with pride. And these remarkable young ladies are her legacy too, my granddaughters, who brought me back to the family I never knew I had. Margaret had been convicted on multiple federal charges, sentenced to 15 years in prison. The investigation into Charlotte's accident remained open, though conclusive evidence of foul play had proven elusive. Maxwell had donated generously to establish a cold case unit dedicated to suspicious vehicular deaths, ensuring that the truth, whatever it might be, would eventually come to light. Donovan Technologies had not only survived the scandal, but thrived under Maxwell's refocused leadership. The NeuroSoft division was revolutionizing preventative medicine, with hospitals across the country implementing Charlotte's technology. That evening, after the celebration, Maxwell sat with the twins on their penthouse balcony, watching the sunset paint Seattle's skyline in shades of gold and copper, the exact color of their hair. "Grandpa," Lily asked, "do you think Mom and Grandma Elizabeth can see us from heaven?" Maxwell put an arm around each girl. "I believe they can, and I think they're very proud of both of you." "And you too," Lucy added matter-of-factly. "You fixed Mom's computer program. You made it work." "We did it together," Maxwell corrected gently. "Family accomplishes more together than apart." Later, after tucking the girls into bed, Maxwell stood in his study, looking at the photographs that now lined the walls. Elizabeth as a young woman, Charlotte's graduation picture, the twins at various ages, and a family portrait taken just last week of Maxwell with his granddaughters. 30 years of separation and secrets had nearly destroyed them all, but fate, or perhaps Elizabeth's determination reaching beyond the grave, had brought the twins to that rainy street corner exactly when Maxwell was passing by. Full circle, he thought. From loss to redemption, from isolation to family. His phone chimed with a text from Robert. "Girl's birthday next month, planning surprise party. You in?" Maxwell smiled as he typed his response. Wouldn't miss it for the world. On his desk sat Charlotte's research journal, which he'd been reading each night, getting to know his daughter through her brilliant mind and determined spirit. Tonight, he turned to a page he'd bookmarked, one of her final entries. "Sometimes I wonder about my biological father. Mum says he must have had his reasons for not wanting to know me. I've decided that's his loss. I'm building something that will help people, save lives, creating a legacy that matters. And if my daughters learn anything from me, I hope it's this: the family you make can be as powerful as the family you're born into. Love is a choice we make every day. Maxwell closed the journal, his heart full. Charlotte had been right. Love was a choice, one he made each morning when he woke to the sounds of the twins bickering over bathroom time. Each afternoon when he left work early for school pickup, each evening when they gathered for dinner and shared their days. Elizabeth had asked him not to waste another 30 years. Looking at the life he'd built with Lucy and Lily, he knew he was honoring that promise. The past couldn't be changed, but the future, their future, was still being written, and it was beautiful. "Grandpa," Lily's sleepy voice called from the hallway, "can you check for monsters again?" Maxwell smiled, setting down Charlotte's journal. Some parts of parenthood, or grandparenthood, were universal. "Coming, sweetheart," he called back. "I'll always come when you call." And he knew somehow that Elizabeth and Charlotte were smiling too.